Is getting a music degree worth it? This video is for anyone who's considering a music degree or art degree, or maybe you already have a music degree and just want to hear someone's input. Now, before I get into my thoughts on the subject, I do want to disclose a few things. The first is I do have a music degree. In fact, I have 3. I have 2 bachelors of music in music education and also music composition. And the second one is my master's. I did get a master's in music composition. The next thing I want to disclose is I'm a student through and through. I love studying. I loved the environment at the time. I loved being in the libraries and reading scores and listening to lectures and listening to music and hearing things in the listening lab and all of that. So I am a learner. I'm still a learner. I'm an incurable learner. I love that growth mindset. I want to learn something new every day, every week, especially things that are important to me like Super Collider and building my skills in electronic music and composing and producing electronic music. So I am a learner, and I loved being a student the time I was. And the last thing is, this is all an opinion, and it's coming from an American perspective, meaning my experience it's been with being at 2 universities, one in Seattle, Washington, and one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm not even including conservatories like Juilliard, Boston, Cleveland, Oberlin, and all those prestigious music schools. I'm talking about getting into a state university that has a school of music in it. And that has been my experience. And whether you've studied at a conservatory or maybe you're from the UK or Japan, South Korea, maybe some part of the world where the education experience, that higher education experience is different, leave me your thoughts. I'd love to know your input, your experiences in the comments below. And with that, we will get started. So, is getting a music degree worth it? It depends. That's the short answer. But I will get very specific. It depends on 2 things. It depends first on what you want. And what you want has to be very, 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 very specific. And I will get specific for you. If you want to be a professor, if you want to be faculty, an adjunct, an instructor at a community college, yes, getting a music degree is worth it because you have to have one for that to be a qualification before you apply for these positions. And the second thing is, it depends on which degree you get. And I'm going to be very specific. It's just one degree that would make everything worth it. And that is the music education degree, being a music education major. This is not because I was a music education major. It's because if you want to teach in the public school setting, band, high school orchestra, middle school choir, general music, whatever the case may be, if it is in a public education setting, you must have the state teaching certification before you can even apply, before you even qualify. And to get that teaching certification, you need 2 to 2.5 years of music education curriculum on top of the normal music college curriculum. And you need to be a part-time student teacher for 1 quarter or 1 semester, depending on your program in your college or in the state. And then you also need a full-time student position for about 1 quarter, about 3 months, I think. Now, in my case, I got the degree with part-time teaching. I was a student teacher for a couple of months, teaching a couple orchestra classes, and it was fun, but by then I knew I didn't want to pursue it long-term. So I got the degree, and then I didn't continue after that. And I remember a lot of people pushing me for getting that certification just in case I wanted to come back, and I don't want to come back. That was about 8-9 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I haven't wanted to return to public school education, and I have no desire to teach public school education. But if you want to teach in the public school education, you need a music education degree. So it really does depend on the degree. So outside wanting to be a professor or wanting to teach music in the public education setting, you really don't need a college degree. You don't need a music college degree. Here in the United States, we have been in this culture, embedded in this culture, taught and told we ought to get a college degree. But unless you are absolutely intentional with what you want to get out of your music education, you may want to reconsider. You may want to explore other options. And it's the same way with music education. We go into the school. We go into the music school. Maybe it's auditioning for the program. Maybe it's auditioning for the orchestra or a college instructor, maybe a private violin faculty, for instance. We go in thinking, well, I need a college education because I want to master my instrument. Or in the case with composition, I might want to master my craft. But if you think about it, it's kind of a logical fallacy. You're saying, what you're admitting is, well, in order to master my instrument, I have to have a college degree. In order to be world class, I have to have a college degree. And we really don't think deeply into this. We think that the degrees is what's going to make us and have us move on and soar to the skies. But in truth, it's actually very far from the truth. And let's explore this with an example. Let's use the music performance degree as an example. You're fresh out of high school, or maybe in your early 20s thinking, I really want to be pro. Maybe you play trombone and you want to be the top notch. You want to be the cream of the crop. You want to play in the best symphonies or maybe in the best big bands, or maybe you want to do live shows, maybe late night shows, and you just want to be the best of the best. So you decide in your young mind, or maybe you're not so young, that's okay. Maybe you're in your 30s and decide I want to do this. But all that said, whatever you are, whatever walk in life you are in, you go into that music school and you think, yeah, to get to be the best, well, I have to study under the best, or at least the best you think, and I have to get this degree. Once I have formal high education, I will get into the world and I will be ready. But maybe you've never approached the music degree before. Maybe you're just getting in. And this is typical. This is quite common among students. They go into that building not considering the hundreds of hours they're going to spend on things outside their instrument, outside mastering their instrument. You need 4 years minimum to get the music degree. And I'm talking about 4 years of music curriculum. I'm not even really talking about general stuff. It really does depend, but I would say safely, you're looking about 4 years. Unless you work fast or unless you test out of classes, you're looking about 4 years of curriculum, really music curriculum. I'm not talking about mathematics, science, or language or all of that. I'm talking about music, 4 years. You need 2 years of music theory, 2 years of music history, and 2 years of piano proficiency. Now, all that stuff is great, and all that stuff can be integrated as you learn. But while people may argue, well, Michelle, music theory is very important, especially for you as a composer, I agree. Music history, you have to know your composers, you have to know the time periods, you have to know how Western music worked, and especially if you're going to be in an orchestra and playing all this symphonic music. I agree with that. However, we kind of say it in a way where this stuff can only be learned in the college setting. This can only be learned in the classroom. This can only be learned in the school library. Well, guess what? You can be an auditor, or, well, maybe not an auditor. You can audit the class. I don't know what the term is, but you can join a class, probably at no charge, or maybe if you have to pay a fee, Maybe you just read what the students read. Maybe you go into the library and peruse all that stuff. But here's the thing. We've got the internet. We've got YouTube channels dedicated to teaching you music theory and teaching you music history. We have so much information at our fingertips that you can get the best of the best education, or you can take online courses for dirt cheap on things like music theory and music history. You could take a few piano lessons and all of that for very cheap, comparably cheaper. I mean, much cheaper than paying for 4 years of college education. It is silly to assume that you need a college education to get proficient, to master your instrument. Consider the music performance degree. Consider the minimum of 4 years you have to spend, not in the practice room, not in the rehearsal, not in your private lesson, but doing all that extracurricular stuff. Consider 4 years. And then consider, 4 years of your education, and then consider 4 years of your time and money spent only on your instrument. Especially if you're in your early 20s, this would be the time to do it. So the tuition has gone through the roof. I mean, I'm talking about 8 years ago where it hiked up 14% the last year of my undergrad. And then after I graduated, I think it was another 14%. So tuition has skyrocketed. People go into an incredible amount of debt. I'm still paying off my college loans, slow and steady. But think about all that money that you're borrowing or you're putting up front for the college education to get better at your instrument. But consider investing that and investing 4 years of finding the top 3 performers, the world-class performers of your instrument, inquiring if you can have a lesson with them. Maybe they take you under their wing. Maybe you live close by and they charge you $250 or $300 an hour for a lesson. And maybe you just save up for that, and maybe you take, a month's worth of lessons or half a year or even a year. And I think comparing that to your tuition, you'd still spend less money. Maybe you have to travel to a master class. Maybe you have to travel outside the country, but the travel expenses and the amount of money you'd have to pay for that person's fee, because they are worth that, that's still, I would dare say, a drop in the bucket compared to what you'd be paying, forking over for your college education. Don't ever assume that you can't be proficient or you can't be a master of your craft or your instrument without a degree. I have mastered the violin. I am proficient in the violin. I'm a professional. I have gigs. I know my stuff. I can play Bach. I can play some very difficult and demanding literature on the violin, but I didn't get a violin performance degree. In fact, I didn't really start getting into violin really, truly, seriously until after my pursuing graduate studies with composing and all of that. But I'm still proficient. I have about 22 years under my belt for violin, so I know my stuff. I know what to do. I can always get better, especially with freestyle improvising and jazz and all of that, but even some of the Bach stuff, it's hard stuff. The classic composers, they're brutal, but I could still, I know enough. I'm proficient enough to take on a very, very challenging piece. And not only that, I could perform on stage. I could perform with a professional. And I don't have a music performance degree. And I really dare say I haven't taken any world-class, instructor lessons. And I should. And once I have the means, I will, because I do need violin lessons. I still want to get very, very good with that. So all this to say is that 4+ years you spend writing essays and researching and being obliged to go to these shows and these concerts and writing essays about them and all this stuff. You could be investing your time on your instrument alone. You can learn music theory if you want. You can learn music history if you want. And you can do this in your own time. So that's what I have to say there. Now, with composing, let's go back into music composition, because that was what I studied. I've noticed this with music composition, but I would venture to say this is true with most music degrees. And that is, they do not teach you how to be a professional. And I mean professional. I mean market yourself, make a music business, whether composing music, getting gigs, and all there. The only degree I can think of is jazz studies. I saw these kids, they really took the initiative, and I think some of the faculty kind of pushed them and stoked the fire there, but these kids really kind of fostered and developed this proficiency, and they got into gigs and restaurants, and they work in the community and they work in the city, and they're known, they're on the radio stations. I'm thinking Seattle in particular. And so they knew how to do it. But outside jazz studies, I did not see that getting out there, marketing yourself, marketing your craft, your composing. So don't go into the music degree thinking they're going to teach you how to market yourself, how to apply yourself in the real world. With composition in particular, you really learn how to compose postmodern music for the concert hall. Really, truly, it has not gone from that. And I hear these new pieces from these professors where I respect them, I admire them. I really admired what they said to me when I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed student. But I hear some of these pieces, I'm like, you have not changed in 9 years. And you're still composing for the concert hall, you know? You're not composing for professionals. And very rare to get an idea very rare to get a commission, really. Even people who are so for modern music and contemporary music, acoustic music, electronic music, it's very, very, very rare as a composer, a contemporary music composer, to get a commission, to get their works out there and paid. Composers getting paid. Just what a shocking thought. So that's one thing, is don't go into the music school thinking that they'll teach you marketing, thinking that they'll teach you how to bring value to society. They'll teach you how to make a profit and make a profit doing quality work and all that stuff that goes into providing value to the community, to the world. What I'm learning now as I go outside the university. And I would venture to say that one other thing that they neglect to teach, they neglect to help foster and develop is, and I speak for composing specifically, is composing prolifically. I would compose maybe 1 to 2 pieces a quarter, maybe 1 piece a quarter for my undergrad. It's about 3 pieces a year. And maybe 1 or 2 pieces for my master's. I admit I was lazy during the break. I never composed during the break. I don't know why. I was a student, but I was also, I loved being a student, but I was kind of lazy. I was very lazy when it came to composing music. And I think that's tragic. I think professors ought to teach students how to compose prolifically, how to compose and produce a music once or twice a month. Getting something done in a week and getting it performed by the end of the month, or getting it recorded by the end of the month. For me, my 2020 New Year's resolution, if you will, is producing music every month and releasing it every month. So composing it, producing it, releasing it every month, because I want to be prolific in my work. And quality will come over time. There are some things that I'll get out there that I'm like, oh, that's not what I planned. But that's just a matter of practice. So practicing composing prolifically. And so that's what they neglect to teach. Maybe it's because I've noticed with the academics, with the university in the United States, is that they really breed instructors and professors. Accolades and accomplishments are really based on education and the institutions, whether it's college or public school education. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't teach you how to become a marketable artist, someone who's reliable, someone who's punctual, someone who is, who believes in prolific quality output. They don't really teach you that. And I can't speak for film composing schools. They have specific programs for that. I can't speak for music business and all of that. That might be its own thing, and maybe it's worthwhile. And if you're a music business major, you can tell me. Or if you've gotten your music business degree, you can tell me if it's worth it. Or some sort of audio engineering degree, tell me if it's worth it. Tell me in the comments below. But that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on getting a music education, getting a music degree. So to cap it all off, it's worth it if you want to become a professor, an instructor, a teacher in the public school setting. If you want to be a music educator, I think that's the term. If you want to be a music educator. But apart from that, you want to master your instrument, save the money, save the time, be prolific in your output with your literature, with your scales and repertoire, and get your stuff out there. Perform in restaurants, do your thing. I gig, and I don't gig as much as I should. That's in the making as well. But get your stuff out there. Get your compositions out there. And understand that it's about providing value. It's about providing value to an audience, to some customers. And yeah, that's about it for that. So if you agree, great, leave it in the comments below. If you disagree, if you have some other experience, also leave that in the comments below. But those are my thoughts on getting a music education degree. And thanks always for watching and listening, and I will see you next time.